order, just the way it is.
Okay, very
So
good.
we can stick
All right,
around
you're
if
allowed.
you want to. I just put a hold on those two items that Nick had asked about. So I want to tell you.
Well,
Go ahead.
Welcome, everyone, to the October 21st, 2025 Audit Facilities and Operations Committee meeting. Thank you for joining us today. We will begin with public comment. If anybody from the community has any comments, seeing no members of the community, we'll move right into our agenda. Mr. Silver, we'll start with you, sir, the bond sale.
Okay, so I'm not on camera, but that's fine. So the first two pages that you have after the agenda refer to the bond sale. So we did, this had to do with the $11.8 million safety and security bond. We know I had approval from May of 24 to sell the bond. In this case, we got bond anticipation note for $7.5 million. We will not be exceeding that amount of the $11.8 million bond, so we are $4 million under, so we will not be borrowing that money. The $7.5 million that we're borrowing will be used to pay for the various projects that are being done through the safety and security bond. What is not paid out right now will be invested. And we are permitted to do that under the law. The bond proceeds are permitted to be invested until such time as you need to expend them. And so we have a bond interest rate of under 3%, which is really good. We're very happy about that. And just so you know, a ban or bond anticipation note is for 1 year, and it gets renewed each year. The value of doing some of this type of investment is that we expect the interest rates to go down. Even though this is very low, we expect it to go down. Do you need a pad?
Sure. Did you have an extra one? That's fine. Yeah. I got one. Thank you.
You all right?
Perfect. Thank you.
So, no, he's okay. Okay, so that's the bond sale. We will be coming to the subject of the leasing of the buses, which is going to be similar to this, but we're going to come to that later. You had asked about.
And just before we move on, Mr. Silver, so it was $4 or $4.5 million under budget?
It's $4.3 million under budget.
I think I just want to stress that number for our community listening, that the safety and security bond that was passed, I want to say that was May 24, thank you, is $4.3 million under budget and on schedule.
Both of those things, yes.
Excellent, perfect. Okay.
Next, you had asked about CTA counts, teacher counts. Well, that would be teachers, social workers, psychologists, nurses, all the people that are in that group. And most of that is special ed related. And Dr. Kennedy has asked that we put this off to our next meeting, which she wants to attend to talk about that. So she only has her committee meeting every other board meeting. We have it every board meeting. So she would like to attend on November 4th and go through that to explain where that is in the budget, what that's for, splitting of classes, compliance issues. And so I'd ask that you defer that.
Sure. So, but just
4th.
Generally speaking, so I know in our last budget discussion this past spring, of course, we had the retirement incentive. It was anticipated that I want to say it was going to be 3 fewer unit members this year as opposed to last year. So that increase is strictly with special education.
There are, part of that is the dual language.
Okay.
Is a couple of positions. And I feel like there was a position in the A school. There was something in the A school. And the others are special ed. So there was one, for instance, there was one special ed class at Kent Elementary School that was 2 grades. And they split it in terms of compliance to be 2 teachers for the 2 grades. So more on that November 4th, if that's okay. Mr. Garcia?
Thank you.
Okay. Next thing is tax collection. I wasn't exactly sure what you wanted, but I think I've got what you want.
Okay.
So you were interested in the costs of our tax collection.
Correct.
It sounds like.
Yeah, so from my understanding is, of course, I'm sure most people are familiar, the towns collect the school taxes on behalf of the school district and then turn those funds over to our Carmel Central School District. But there's a fee associated with their collection of the tax.
So the towns, well, the town of Patterson does the collection for Southeast and Putnam Lake and Putnam Lake. Kent collects their own, Carmel collects their own, and East Fishkill is in Dutchess County, and so that's collected separately since it's not in our county.
Mhm.
When the deadline comes for the payment of the taxes, which is at the end of, like the middle of October, after that point, all of the uncollected tax data goes to the county. The towns no longer collect anything after the first collection period ends. Anybody who's paid their taxes in full, that's it. They pay it by the October deadline. If they haven't, it then goes to the county, and the county charges 4% interest
Mhm.
on what hasn't been paid. There's also a fee, like a service charge kind of fee. When there's also a group of people called holies with an H. The holies mean that they haven't paid any taxes and the town is taking it over. Those people pay 4%, but we get half of that. And then there's a 7% service charge for those people, and the county keeps that. That's that part of it.
Mhm.
Now as to the fees. The only fees the towns charge us have to do with mailing and printing, which is, if we were doing it ourselves, we would still have the mailing and printing charges. The county charges us about $6,000 or $7,000 altogether. But my understanding is that the interest brings in somewhere around $100,000 that we get from that 2% of the uncollected. So the total fees the county charges somewhere around $7,000. And to the best of my knowledge, that's all we pay. I don't know whether you were thinking about whether we would be better off collecting our own taxes. If that was part of what you were interested in. I have done that in Mount Vernon and in Poughkeepsie. It's a complicated matter, but that was done there because what was collected wasn't given to the school district.
Yes.
The law provides that the county does not have to give us the balance of our money that's uncollected for 2 years. However, the Putnam County and Dutchess County make us whole right away. And so we have all of our money by early spring. And during the tax collection period, we receive checks. I thought it was electronic, but it's not. We receive checks every week from all the municipalities that collect taxes on our behalf. So we are guaranteed to get all of our tax levy. The only thing that happens is that we get this 2% from people who aren't paying their taxes at all during the base period of tax collection.
Mhm. So that point that Mr. Silver, you were getting at, as far as the district collecting their own taxes, the only true savings would be the $6,000 or $7,000 that the county charges.
Right, but then
And then you may have to hire a part-time employee.
You would have to.
So there's no real actual
Two
savings.
full-time employees where I was.
Mhm.
But you would have to do that. But we collect much less in taxes than others. We rely more on state aid. It's a little bit lopsided. So we benefit from the state aid and have less in taxes. Unless you have other questions about that.
That was pretty much.
I kind of just did the best I could to understand that.
Thank you.
Next thing is going to be the budget format. So you have 2 documents at the very end. The one that's in color is the one we're going to look at for a minute. So this is the budget format for next year. Look at the one in color. Dr. Dorn is going to present on the other one.
Okay.
So that is you have that too, Doc. So that is the budget format for next year. So I've changed it a little bit from what we had in my first budget here, in that I have now put in the old budget, the current budget, and the new budget. So we're looking, some people have asked, what is the budget to budget difference? And there wasn't really a way of showing that without having this extra column. So now you can see last year, this year, next year. And I thought that would be a good addition so people could see how the budget is changing from year to year. And then we have the actual for last year in there. That's the 24-25 actual. That's column B. And then we have the budget. And then budget adjustment, that column, column G, is only what we carry forward to pay our bills from the year before. And then I have the next year. So I've put in, I've done some work on it. What I'm trying to do for the new budget is to have more explanation, more of people seeing what it is. We're not going to talk about taxes at this point. The debt service for the bus leases is in here. In the current budget, it's $206,000. That's on page 19, if you want to take a look at it. I'm just going to point that out to you. I was unsure of where to put that figure because you should see something in yellow and maybe right below that.
Mm-hmm. Big bus lease.
Big bus lease. So you see $206,000 there on page 19. So we don't have to pay that $206,000 this year. Let's say we borrow $1 million. It would be over 5 years, and we would have to pay $200,000 of the principal every year. But the way we're going to do it is with something called, actually I'm going into that part of the agenda that is a little bit later. What we're going to do is have a bus lease ban, a bus lease bond anticipation note, which allows you to have a lower interest rate if the interest rates are going down in the second year. And that's what I think will be good, and our financial advisor advised us this way, and it costs less than doing a regular bond. It costs less than doing a typical lease that you would do through a bank. So that yellow is on every page. And remember, this is my draft. I always have to say this is my version of this, not yours. So my problem with that bus lease is that it's not in debt service right now, it's in transportation. And I'm concerned that if it's not in transportation, we might have a problem getting our aid because they look at what you have by budget code for what you spend. And so I may have to modify that. What I don't have in there is interest on this loan for the buses, but it will be in here next time you see that. I also want to point out one other thing in here, and that is on page 2. Line 59, line 59, no, line 50, sorry. On line 50, you see a $61,000 revenue. The bond anticipation note we just took out included a premium, meaning we didn't just borrow $7.5 million. If you look at those pages again, if you want to, you would see that we've got $7.5 million and $61,000 extra. So for the privilege of loaning us the money, they gave us $61,000 as a present, and that's what we have there. But I have it in the wrong place. It doesn't belong in this line. I'm just pointing out in case you look at it. I don't expect you to know that, but it needs to be moved to another location. It's not going to be considered revenue for next year or this year. It just doesn't belong there. And so I'm fixing that as well. And one other thing on the last part of there where it says debt service reserve on the left-hand side, bottom line. That needs to be changed as well. It's really going to be should be called the debt service fund. And when we get to our fund balance, you'll see that it is not listed there, even though there's $1,800,000. If you look all the way on the right, you'll see that $1,796,000 on that same bottom line. And so even though it's listed there, it's just called the wrong thing. And so I'll be fixing that next time we're out looking at this. So this is the draft. If you could take this, and if you have comments about it, I would appreciate that. Perhaps you could bring your comments back to the next meeting.
Mr. Silver, could you just speak very quickly to the retirement reserve? I know,
Sure.
I'm sorry, the insurance reserve. I know that there's been talk some previous meetings about the health insurance
Right,
reserve.
So the insurance reserve right now in that list is $2.8 million. If you look all the way on the right side, by insurance reserve, you'll see $2.8 million. And that is now going to be increased by $3,120,000, which is the money that the auditors discovered that did not belong in a liability account, but belonged in an asset account. It's a plus for us, not a minus. And so the board at the last meeting approved my moving that money to the insurance reserve. So that $3 million, $3.1 million will now be $5.9 million in that budget code after that money. Probably next time you see this, it'll show the updated numbers, but I was waiting for final numbers from the auditors for that. But that's a good point to bring that up.
Excellent.
So that increases our reserves substantially.
Thank you.
And so, but we should say what that's for. So that's for, we don't pay premiums, we pay what's called premium equivalents. We pay the actual claims from what people get from their claims. So we don't pay $1,000 a month. We could pay $10 for somebody, $1,000 for somebody else. It's all based on what we actually pay out. So this insurance reserve is used to help offset our premium equivalents. You can see that I have $1 million. No, I don't. Sorry. On the wherever it is, I want to increase that to offset some of the cost in the budget for health insurance premiums for next year. And since there's so much in the insurance reserve, there's $5.9 million, we did say last time that it made no sense not to use some of this vast amount of money that we have extra to offset some of the costs. So the cost will go up, but this will be a revenue to offset. So if the cost goes up $1 million, we might put $1 million in to offset that cost. So that won't decrease how the budget goes up. Budget may go up that $1 million, but it's being funded from the reserve. But that doesn't stop it from going up. Like this year's budget is up about $5 million from last year, but a good portion of it was funded internally. That's how we had very little tax increase in the current year. So that's that. If you take a look at it and let me know your thoughts at the next time we meet or whenever you can.
Thank you.
The next thing is budget calendar. So you have the budget calendar in front of me. The first draft, although the new superintendent's name is on that, we have not discussed it yet. Attached to that is also the BOCES budget calendar, which I took from the BOCES budget calendar, made our budget calendar. This just shows what we're going to do for the next 4 or 5 months in terms of the budget. Presentations we'll have, when they'll be. We will have our road show like we did last year, but that's not really listed here. Road show meaning, Nick, that we went out to every town and went to their town hall meetings, met with councilmen, met with the town supervisors. We went to Rotary. So
I see you even at the Chamber of Commerce.
That's right,
You
at
guys
the
were all over.
steakhouse.
You guys are all over.
Yeah.
And Mr. Silver, just for those listening at home, a couple of the big dates that may be of interest to our community is April 7th, 2026, which is when the board, it's anticipated that we will vote on the adoption of a proposed budget. And May 19th is the community budget vote.
Right.
And board member
And
election.
so a few of those things are in stone, but
Mhm.
some of them are also subject to board review. You might not want to do something at a particular time before or however you want to do it. But even though we had very limited time last year because of when I got here, we will have much more time to do this. Dr. Gorman in a minute is going to talk about our plans for next year's budget on the building level. Next thing is something I never thought about, but a guy called me and said he wants to put the Carmel schools in his life insurance as a beneficiary. And he asked me what he should do, and I said, well, you should talk to your insurance agent, but there's no reason why you can't take your girlfriend out and put the school district in if that's what you'd like to do. And I thought that was kind of worth mentioning, that somebody could actually bequeath something to the school district. So that would be kind of nice.
Well, we appreciate that if you're listening out there. Thank you.
Next is an update on the audit. we still, everything is going well. The external audit will be finished shortly. We had updated fund balance figures, which are a little bit different than what you have in front of you, but are nothing substantial. We'll come to that in a minute. Future bonding, right now, we've talked about bonds. I don't think there's any plan to do a bond in the spring, but we do know that we could do a $23 million bond with no increase in taxes. It was 20, but because we didn't spend all the money in the safety and security bond, that number goes up because that was going to be tax-free as well, or tax neutral as well.
And Mr. Silver, could you, before we get too far away from that, just for people listening at home, of course, 23 million is a big number. Can you explain how that would be revenue neutral?
Yes. So each year, our debt, what we owe, goes down. If you were to look at the debt pages on the budget, which we'll show to the public eventually, you see a substantial reduction in next year's debt service, what we owe from what we paid this year, more than $1 million reduction in our debt. And so when you take out a new bond, as that debt goes down, you have new debt which replaces it, and the payments of the new debt do not exceed what the old debt was. So that's what neutral means.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't have any bond, that would change the equation. But then when you did have a bond, it would become a problem if you didn't keep up with keeping things revenue neutral.
And some of the old debt falling off is this fund, correct? The rooms that we're sitting in, which was the 2004.
Yep, and that's already completely in that budget draft for next year. All the debt service for next year is finished, including interest. And so we can look at that next meeting or at a later date. That'll be fine. We know that we were talking about doing the fields, the high school and middle school. That was the lion's share of any potential bond. And the bus garage is another part of it, as you know, and that is a big problem for us should we decide to go with electric buses.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's also a state mandate involved in that equation too.
Right, but we know there's a 2-year delay available, followed by another 2-year delay available. But we do believe that the whole thing's going to end up going out to 2035, which will probably be on your time. I'll still be here, but you know, there'll be new board members by that time. So our problem with the electric bus is that it could be somewhere around $50,000 a month, $40,000 to $50,000 a month for electric service, and that would be to charge 98 buses. Mark's going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute when we get to that.
How many buses was that?
That would be something like 98 buses, or we actually have more than that, but not all of those are really buses. Some of them are just vans, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the garage as it sits now is not capable of servicing electric buses.
And that's because these buses are a different size. They're
Height,
taller and longer.
not this,
A little bit tall,
but the longer doesn't affect our ability to do anything. It's the height.
so they wouldn't fit in the current, the base. They would not fit.
No. And a regular bus right now, a diesel bus right now costs around $150,000, and we're looking at well over $400,000 for an electric bus.
And it's also safe to assume that we don't have near the electrical capabilities.
So
No.
we don't, nor does the, what do we say, the power
The
grid?
infrastructure.
The infrastructure.
Yeah.
So you have that in front of you. Mark's going to talk about that.
Okay.
You want to do that now?
That's fine. I sat in a Zoom the other day with Isaac, a lady by the name of Jenna Lopez, who's Fleet Electrification. They're working with us to work with NICIC to figure out this whole electric issue with the bus garage.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're aware or not aware, our power for Kent is fed off of Mooney Hill Transfer Station.
Okay.
There's not enough power there to supply us with power for electric buses. Now, I guess 2027 is the mandate by the governor. We started our process, so it's going to push us a little bit further out. Discussing now with NICIC, you should have a printout there. Okay, on page 2, it kind of goes into the load capacity. If you look at this Carmel School District ESP load,
Mhm.
has an adverse impact on the transmission system. What they need to do is to increase the size of their transmission station there, which then we have to pay some of the money. I'm not sure if it's 100% or at least 50% of it to upgrade their plant.
Which sounds crazy because we're upgrading their plant and then paying the electric bills.
So they're still researching more into that. We're gonna have another Zoom, which maybe you can sit on the next one here, you'll see it, but they're gathering more information for us. So they basically went through a couple of, if you go to the next page, there's a couple of phases where distribution and how things could work. It's a lot of mumbo, it's a lot of technical stuff in here, which, like I said, basically, they can't supply us with the power. They gotta figure out how they're gonna increase their transmission plant to increase us with the power we're gonna need by the time we have electric buses rolling in. It's all big money game, and we're gonna have to pay for it.
Ken, I'm sorry. I was just gonna ask, since this is a state mandate and this is all that, there's no way that the state's gonna assist with any of this, or?
There's talk, from what I was told, that there are some incentives, but that might be on the bus end of it, and there might be financial aid reimbursement on the buses. That's all what I've been hearing talk, and maybe we can look into, Ken, you can look into it further.
The biggest ticket after the buses would be the electric.
Yeah.
About a year and a half ago or so, when they were talking about grants that districts would be eligible for, we fell into an unenviable category where they said that we were too wealthy of a district to qualify for those grants.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
On the
So
last.
hopefully that changes.
On the last two pages, now these are rough from NICEAG, where you can see, there's a phase 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where they have the amount of vehicles we have with the electrical output needed. But like I said, just jump to phase 5, if we have 93 buses that are on the electric grid, you're looking with demand reduction at 25,000, and without demand, you're looking at 39,000 a month in just electric bills, just to power these buses. On top of the money we're gonna have to put out to get our yard electrified, so to speak. Cable runs, power transfer stations, all that stuff, all the buses. So one charging station would take care of 2 buses. We got 100 buses, now we're sticking these charging stations in between every 2 buses. Our yard's gonna shrink a little bit, things are gonna get a little weird, so.
So the $40,000 per month in electric costs, what's our fuel costs currently per month to operate our fleet?
I would have to get back to you on that one, ask Mike on that, but I think it's a lot cheaper than
Have that.
you might have,
I
I'm not
have
sure.
that in the budget. There's a line here that says what we spent last year
Okay,
on diesel fuel.
but the electric
Yeah.
is significantly
Oh, I think
more
the
expensive.
electric, and we're only getting 100 miles out of a bus. And you know our roads here, and in the middle of the winter,
Mhm.
that 100 miles is gonna go down real quick. And we're gonna send a diesel truck with a diesel generator to try to plug it in and charge it. From what I hear, upstate New York, they're not using, they have a couple of buses up there in certain districts, they're not using it because they're not working. And especially in the wintertime, it's too cold, buses will not run. So hopefully this will all go away, maybe.
We spent about $217,000 last year on diesel fuel.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move on.
Yes, thank you for the update with that.
So next is fund balance. So you have something that I think it says appropriations on the front of it.
Yes.
So I just want to bring you up to date on our fund balance. We spent, on page 3 there, it's circled as well, I think. We spent $2 million, we underspent by $2 million in last year. So that's part of fund balance. We underspent by $2 million. Now go to the next last page. And our revenue was $4 million more than we had planned, than we thought it was going to be. So
Mr.
that-
Silver, the $2 million figure, I know that the auditors always recommend that we're spend about 97 or so percent of our budget, 96 to 97, if I remember those figures correct.
Okay.
Is that right in that realm of expending?
So
96, 97% of our
1%
budget.
would be $1.4 million.
Mhm.
So it's under that
Okay.
number. So the two of these together is $6 million additional fund balance, just these two. But then we take that $3 million insurance money that we had to move over. And so now we're at $9 million additional fund balance. And I just pointed that out. These are not official numbers yet, but it's gonna be that way or very close to it.
Thank you.
Mark, you want to just talk about the radio project?
Yes, radio project is almost to a close. A couple months back, it came to the board with 10, middle school, high school, elementaries also, but we're more concerned with the high school and middle school on campus communication between the various safety groups, custodial staff, administrative staff. So we got the okay to go ahead. One repeater is on this building with an antenna right now. The other building, the middle school has a building, an antenna and a repeater. Talking with Goosetown, who is the radio company we contracted with, who also does the bus radios, the buildings were asking for some more channels. So talking to Ken, we got a second repeater being installed on both buildings. Next week, actually, the second repeater is going to be delivered to the both schools, and the radios are going to be dropped off on site. So by the beginning of November, all the new radios for this building and for the middle school for the campus communication should be complete. And they'll also, high school, middle school, if need to, they can talk to each building in an emergency via the radios with the new repeaters up.
So, on
That's between
that,
the high school and middle school.
Yes,
on that, but not yet, is that we are going to expand our transportation radios. Right now, there's, I don't know, 3 or 4 people sitting talking to the buses in the afternoon, but there's only one channel. So they can only talk, one person can talk to one bus. If anybody else needs help, if there's a kid lost or whatever, they have to wait until that person is off the radio. But all of this equipment has the capability to expand to more channels. And that's going to be the next step after this safety and security. I'm going to come to you with that, but I'm not ready to do that yet. Doc?
Right, what's the Goosetown radio go these days?
say that again,
What's the Goosetown radio walkie-talkie go for these days?
over a couple $100.
Well, that's it? That's what you're-
This building alone was 230,000 with the repeaters, 110 portables, everything soup to nuts is 230,000. So I don't have the exact on me, but I do have it back in the office.
So, so you have what Dr. Gorman has on the screen. This is the template for next year's budget on a building level.
Okay. The
This
screen
all-
is not, the community at home can't see the screen, right?
Right.
Okay.
So Dr. Gorman put this together. And, I'm sorry, go
We just
ahead.
wanted to roll out in an effort for increased transparency, efficiency, be ahead of the game, and create a system that lasts independent of people coming and going. We put together this comprehensive budget template. So I've met with department chairs, building principals, departments, and we've sort of rolled this out and previewed it for them. Each building will be given a budget, so you can see the drop-down menu, right? And they will go to each tab and they will fill out their requests. So, for example, the item 1, textbooks. We put in, it would be replacement of text. $70. So calculates there, we've built in 10% tax, sales tax in there.
Should be.
And then in the summary page, it starts calculating in the running tab. Some of the things that we added this year, especially of interest based off of last month's discussion, was field trips. So we're gonna ask them to plan out now what they're thinking about for next year. And then when they do all this, distributed to their department chairs, their teachers, their secretarial staff, whatever their needs are, they put it there. And then they meet with us. So we're gonna roll this out next week to start the process,
Excellent.
right, way ahead of time. And then we're going to then meet with them, give them a due deadline, meet with each school, and they'll have to defend the budget, right?
Mhm.
And so we'll say, are these wants, are these musts, are they haves? And then what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to internally bring it down, and it'll be transparent to all of our administration and their needs. But the planning process is much more thorough. One of the things that I've noticed as I've been here is that I don't really know a lot because I can't find it. So I'll know next year exactly what was ordered, what vendor, what the needs are, what are the PD requests, what are the technology requests, field trip requests, textbooks, supplies, furniture, you name it, we've incorporated into this, this spreadsheet. And we'll be able to share this, and then we'll be able to make defense rounds and cut budgets. And we can use a format similar to this with every department, with special education, technology. So we will really have a nice comprehensive package. When we go ahead and do our presentations in April, we'll be able to already say that things have been cut internally by us based off of our assessments and our budget needs. And so we'll be able to really put together a really nice presentation, be very transparent in what exactly schools are buying and what their needs are and what their wants are.
So the one part of this is that this is all electronic. So this is not gonna be paper.
Mhm.
I have this, you said you love paper.
Oh, I
So
do.
have this for tonight. But so this, any page that's populated goes right to the summary page. So we know exactly what the shipping costs are, we know what everything they have, and there's also an inventory component to this. They can't just order books without saying that they have this supply on hand of books that they might be using for the next year.
And then very simply, for example, what I'm doing, just to pick up where we left off last month, if somebody requests a field trip, and then the board will know exactly what the requests are and how much we want to fund and where it'll be distributed to. So we'll be able to really be organized with this as opposed to just putting a lump sum somewhere. And it'll force the buildings to be proactive. You know, we really, and by starting this now in October, our hope is to have the buildings work on this through November, partially December, and then evolve this to the business administrator and superintendent. And that's when they do their, dicing and slicing, and then that helps them give us a full comprehensive presentation to you. So it's really an exercise in efficiency and transparency, and a system that next year I'll be able to take a look and say, oh, last year you had replacement techs, do you need them now, or what happened to them? And all the way through. We've included PD, library supplies, field trips, student assemblies, administrative office supplies, summer curriculum work, personnel, planned improvements, technology supplies and furniture, along with everything else you would want to buy academically.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gorman. For those I know at home that can't see up on the screen, but this is really a very user-friendly, transparent, easy to follow and understand form that you put together. I think it'll go a long way with budget transparency and building trust between our community, the board, the administration. So thank you for the initiative that you took and for presenting this to our committee.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I think we're to the point that Nick, on the two things that we held back on, I think we've covered everything else.
Yes, sir.
So field trip findings were included with this. Facilities update, that was just the overall that we discussed before.
I
or was
think
there
that,
something
I think you were
specific?
gonna say one more thing about the field trips that you're preparing for the November 4th meeting.
Yeah, so I've been digging in, and there's a lot to dig into. And one of the things I'm trying to do when I'm auditing it is compartmentalize it, right? Like work is different than 5-8, which is different than 9-12, which is different than booster clubs, sports, athletics, music, and all the types of trips. But one of the things that and we're looking at the forms and other forms, but I looked at total expenses, and one of the things that we noticed is that we charge a lot of money for our own internal buses on field trips. So like $585 sometimes for a bus, our own buses. So we were thinking that's something that maybe we could discuss, and that could be the ultimate gift from the board, is that we would just pay driver hours and gas and miles, and then there are buses, so why would we be passing that expense on? It does go into our revenue bucket, but that might be a nice way to sort of chop some of those big cost numbers that we were looking at last month, that were really big,
Absolutely.
right? And it seems easy.
Right, and it seems, sorry, I'm speaking as a member of the public, so feel free to cut me off.
We're very open in this committee.
No, I'm not. I already said it. We're not allowed to talk unless you recognize us. It's public.
Jump on in.
But jokes aside, that's exactly right. We shouldn't be treating field trips as a revenue stream. So how do we bring this down to these are things we're paying for anyway? Sure, there's some wear and tear. Maybe we work out some fair way to deal with that, but it's not the same as if we were some outside person were renting the bus for a day.
So what we do know is that we put a lot of money into this current year's budget.
Yep.
At the request of the board. And whether it's being spent or not, I don't know, but the requirement for next year will be that they say ahead of time what their field trips are going to
Or
be.
at least
So-
some kind of.
To the extent they know, yeah.
Something, just
At least
something. So Dr. Warren is doing a whole financial analysis, going back a few years to see what was in the budget, what was spent. We do know that we have a bunch of new categories in this current year's budget. And with the transparency, we're hoping that will move this forward to a conclusion.
Excellent. Just to tie up loose ends before we move in, so, Mr. Silver, you're all finished with bus leases and financing? That was.
Yes, we spoke
discussed
about that earlier.
And Mr. Earl, the facilities update, that was all incorporated with what was discussed earlier?
Unless you want me to add anything more, or?
No, I think you said enough.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, Mr. Silver, I will turn it over to you for the two outstanding, whichever order you want to take them in.
So we wanted to start an initial discussion of taxes for next year. And the first thing I'd like you to look at is the appropriations that I gave you. I think everybody has that, the appropriation status, not a status report, but what we spent for last year. Yes. Yes. So on page 3 of that document, you will see that we underspent the budget by $2 million. On the right-hand side where it's circled, we underspent the budget by $2 million. If you now look at the last page, you'll see that our revenue was $4 million more than we thought it was going to be. Those two together are additional fund balance, $6 million, additional fund balance for what we have. Now, we also have to add in the insurance money that we now have changed from being a liability to an asset, a $3,120,000 or thereabouts that the board voted on last time to move this to the insurance reserve. So that's an additional $3 million in fund balance. So now we have over $9 million in additional fund balance. The insurance reserve is the big one to talk about because that had $2.8 million in it. It now adds over $3 million, and so that's almost $6 million in that fund. I will propose to the board that we use a substantial portion of that to offset the health insurance costs for next year. That's exactly what that reserve is for. And so it's $2.8 million now. It's going to be $5.9 million, and we may want to use as much as $1 million to offset the increase in cost for our health insurance premium equivalents that we have. Remember, we don't have premiums, we have premium equivalents because we are self-funded, and so we do not pay premiums, and that fund, that insurance reserve is exactly for that purpose, because a premium equivalence means claims, and it's to offset the cost of claims. So this is the perfect use for our additional fund balance for that purpose. So that's a preview to what we're talking about for taxes. We had a 0.74 increase last year, meaning just under 0.75% was our increase in taxes last year. The document that you have in front of you now is, again, my version, and it calls for, I think I gave you that. No, I didn't. It calls for a 0.1 increase in taxes for next year, meaning 0.1%. Jim, you can look on.
Yeah, we're good.
So 0.1%. The total, if you look at page 1 of what I just gave you, the total of that would be $102,000 increase in tax revenue for next year. I've said to you that I think it's poor public policy to have no increase. I'm also aware of how much money we have and that we need to be using the money. But I've seen in the past where there's been no increase in taxes and the public gets used to having no increase in taxes. This, again, my version is 0.1%. So that's 1/7 of what we had in the past year, which was almost nothing. We were the lowest tax increase anywhere around. With this, we will, of course, be the lowest again. So, Mr. Curzio, so that's the beginning of the discussion. So we need to decide whether we want to use or how much of our reserves we want to use. We don't know yet what we're going to need in totality for the budget. We have contract negotiations with a number of contracts, and we don't know what that's going to bring for the 26-27 year. This is also part of our 3-year plan that we've already discussed at some point, and that we have more discussion to have on the 3-year budget that we presented a couple of months ago. So that's the initial part of this. And to be continued, as each time you see this is going to be a little more filled in. As contracts are settled, you'll see lines in this document that have salaries for next year in them, and benefits will be accompanying that. I've said to the committee a little earlier that we already have all of our debt service in there for next year on pages that are near the end. Our new buses are coming in a couple of weeks, and we're working on financing for that. All of that is already in here. So we just have to decide how much we want to use of the money that we have in reserves for next year. And so if you're looking at that document, the reserves are pretty much on page 2 on the bottom of the page. If you wanted to look at that, it shows on the right-hand side how much there is in each reserve, but those numbers are from last June. They're not updated with the new audit yet.
So, Mr. Seller, just for our community listening at home, for anybody interested in the room, over the past several years, what I did, I looked at tax levy versus the annual inflation. So 2021, and of course, the school year would be 21-22, and it moves forward as such. But it was a 0% tax levy that was voter imposed after both budgets were rejected in back-to-back months. In 2021, the annual inflation rate was 7%. In 2022, the levy increase was 0.97%. The annual inflation rate was 6.5%. The tax levy increase in 2023 was 1.86% compared to a 3.4% annual inflation rate. 0% tax levy increase in 2024 with a 2.9% annual inflation rate. And as you alluded to, sir, this year was 0.74. To date, the annual inflation rate is also 2.9%. So we are, of course, maintaining our levy increases below the annual inflation rate, and we are maintaining them below the tax cap, 2 important barometers. I will throw a little monkey wrench in here. I think with the numbers as they are now, I would love to see what the difference. I'd love to see a 0%.
I know you would.
So I would love to continue that discussion, what that would look like, especially, of course, and I know people out here know because we got the notices. I didn't make out too bad, but the town of Kent was reassessed.
Lucky for you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, other people did not make out as nearly as well. I know a construction property that saw over a $50,000 increase in taxes, not their assessment, increase in taxes. So, and of course, the reassessment has nothing to do with the Carmel Central School District. But
it did affect our taxpayers.
But it did affect our taxpayers, exactly. So I know our county executive with the county tax bill is looking to reduce the levy being collected at the county level. And I think if we would be able to hold it steady at the school level for a year, especially when it's 2/3 of our property tax bill, I think that would be much needed help and tax relief for our community, especially in very trying times with reassessments and a crushing tax burden as it is.
If Mr. Chairman would recognize me. I'd like to second what Trustee Curcio has said. I'd like to add that I know we've been around this tree many times, and I'm not going to contest your statement that there's a public policy reason to increase whether the increase is needed or not. But I will say if every time I went back to McDonald's, they said it cost 10 cents more this time because we believe it's poor public policy to charge you the same amount for a burger 2 times in a row, I would start looking for another restaurant. I do think we are seeing, we have a public who is seeing a massive reassessment. We have a public who is facing a sharp hike in the consumer price index. And we have a public that is facing some degree of uncertainty around employment, that we don't have current numbers right now, the government being shut down. With that in mind, I think speaking as a member of the public, because that's all I can do in this room, I do think that if you come to me and say, well, we need to raise these taxes so that we have 100,000 more to spend, that's obviously not a necessity within the scale of this budget. So I think a lot of members of the public will look at that sideways and have real questions about that.
So we can make happen whatever you want to happen.
How about a cut?
We can make that happen. We're talking about $100,000 in here. If I take that out, it really is a nil effect on what we're doing. It will just depend on how much we want to use in reserves, what the state aid looks like. We'll know the first state aid run will be January 21st. We'll see what that looks like. If the governor doesn't take away the hold harmless, if that stays,
Which appears safe for this year, at least as of now.
this year we're fine, but we don't know about next year. If the hold harmless goes away, that would change the equation, but I don't believe it will because 26 is a big year and I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
Last year she was getting reelected, it didn't happen. This year is a different reason. So I think we're safe for next year at least. So I would factor that into the equation. And our revenue is going to be substantially higher in transportation, as you know, from our child safety zone work.
Yes.
And there'll be other increases having to do with the safety and security bond will increase our building aid, and there'll be other things related to special ed that will increase revenue next year as well. As you know, the money comes in a year after you spend it.
Yes.
The aid comes in.
Thank you. I think it would send a very positive message to our community to be able to keep it flat. Trustee Wise, I agree with everything you said except abandoning McDonald's.
I call that.
Predictable with you.
So,
Because, if I'm a member of the public and saying, well, you want 100,000 more, well, why not 100,000 less? Let's cut it by, let's have a negative 0.1.
Glad you're here as a member of the public.
I agree with Citizen Wise. Trustee Curcio.
Do we have time? I don't know if we do have time to talk about the other matter.
we're out of time for the fields. We will add that as our first item of business for our next meeting. I want to thank everybody that attended tonight, all of our professionals. Please go back to your, or take the message back to your departments that we truly appreciate everybody that works for our district and makes our district operate. We could not be running this organization without every single employee, and our students are truly benefiting from all the hard work that they do every day in and day out, the hard work all of you do day in and day out. And we are extremely grateful for all of your service to our district. We will look forward to our meeting next month. Trustee Magliano, Trustee Wise, any parting final comments?
No, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Gorman, for explaining that. I love what you added. I think that's going to help. Thank you, Mr. Silver. We have plenty to keep talking about.
We'll see everyone next month. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, Melissa, you
I don't need any of it.
Yeah.
I don't.